We're back for your ears only. I'm Melissa Axelberth.
I'm David Alpern with this news quote. It is an attack on the global community. That was Viola Onwurili, a junior Nigerian foreign minister, after a suicide car bombing killed at least 18 people at the main United Nations building in the capital of Abuja. The radical Boko Haram sect, with reported links to al-Qaeda, claimed responsibility. Now this.
ليبيا لكم طرابلس الطرابلسيين ليس للعملاء الذين يستجدون بالناتو. هؤلاء عملاء ليسوا من طرابلس، ليسوا من ابناء طرابلس. هؤلاء جانب، هؤلاء خونة. طرابلس لكم.
I think I don't need to see the photos, but bizarre and creepy are good adjectives to describe much of Qaddafi's behavior.
You knew once the TV reporters in Tripoli last week began marveling at the way Muammar Gaddafi's forces were melting away, like those of Saddam Hussein in Iraq so many years ago. There was bound to be more fighting, as we heard. It was encouraged by that audio message reportedly from the fugitive Gaddafi himself. Even his rebels picked through the private treasures of his compound, including a photo album devoted entirely to former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, as noted by current state spokeswoman Victoria Nuland.
How long it would take for Gaddafi to turn up, alive or dead, with more than $1 million price on his head remained in doubt. More clear was the irony that his toppling from power removed the key element uniting disparate rebel factions, tribes, and sects. That raised questions about their ability to cooperate in building a stable, functioning government satisfactory to all in a nation long crippled by dictatorship and now awash in weapons and ammo.
To consider the challenges and pitfalls ahead for Libya and the lessons already learned from developments there for your ears only, we turn to Dr. Daniel Surwer, professorial lecturer and senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of International Studies, scholar at the Middle East Institute, and blogger at peacefair.net. Welcome to our show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
How long do you think the fighting will go on before Gaddafi is captured or killed?
It's impossible to tell. It has proven very difficult to find particular individuals. It took quite some time in Iraq to find Saddam Hussein. It took a decade to find Ratko Mladic. It's hard to know how long this will take.
And do you think that until he is found, or even after he is found, there will be loyalists who will continue to fight, or do you think his turning up will sort of take finally the air out of it?
I think finding him would take a good part of the air out of the resistance. So I think it is important to find him. But I think you may continue to see resistance even after he and his sons are captured.
You and others have noted the many fault lines along which the rebels could split, regional, tribal, ideological, and we did see internal violence when a former Gaddafi general who had become the top rebel military commander was assassinated by rebel troops enraging his powerful tribe. But within days, there was enough unity to push into Tripoli. A good omen?
I don't believe in omens. I believe in facts, and it unquestionably was a bad sign. I think keeping a big tent is very important for the Libyans right now. They are about to sit down and write the rules of the political game. That's called the Constitution, which distributes power among their institutions. And in order to do that correctly, you need as broad a possible spectrum of people involved. And a lot of people are describing the Transitional National Council as a hodgepodge. Well, a hodgepodge is exactly what you need in writing the rules of the game.
And if things go sour, along which fault lines most likely? Regional, tribal, more or less radical views of Islam and terrorism?
All of the above. I think the regional and tribal divisions may emerge, especially if there's a great deal of violence. The Islamist secularist division may emerge as well. A good number of the troops who were at the forefront in taking Tripoli came from Islamist forces, and there are a lot of people who are afraid that that might tilt the whole political spectrum in that direction.
Many ask if there's an obvious new national leader among the rebels. You answer no, and that it's better that way. Why?
I think at this stage, it's better not to have a single leader. I think it's better to have everybody participating in the process of writing the rules of the game without a single figure out front who would naturally be inclined to dictate that the rules of the game weigh in his direction, there will be time enough for political competition. Right now, what they need is a minimum of unity around the really high-priority efforts of stabilizing Tripoli and beginning a political process.
Clearly, the road to rebel success was paved by devastating NATO airstrikes on Qaddafi forces and installations, airborne intelligence, and reportedly even some allied special forces on the ground, though not conventional troops. Was regime change, do you think, always the secret goal behind the UN-approved humanitarian mission to prevent a massacre in Benghazi?
I think there's no secret about the fact that the Americans and others concluded fairly early after the passage of the UN Security Council resolution that protecting civilians was going to require removing Qaddafi.
And what lessons did we learn about the viability of such a military mission in a place like Libya, as opposed to far more powerful Syria, where massacres continue?
Well, I think we knew from Afghanistan, Kosovo, Bosnia, that it is viable to have a military campaign that's conducted with very advanced military aircraft fighting from the air, but local forces on the ground.
What lessons do you think Assad in Syria, the leaders in Iran, North Korea, elsewhere are drawing from the Libyan drama?
They're drawing the conclusion we've got to repress this rebellion as quickly as possible. I don't think there's any possibility of military intervention from the outside in Syria. I think the best bet for the demonstrators, whom I support enthusiastically, is to stick with nonviolence.
What kind of military or civilian assistance do you see as needed and wanted in Libya now, and by which nations?
Well, it's not clear what is wanted yet. I think Libya is going to have trouble stabilizing a number of the larger towns, including Tripoli. If they need it, they'll ask for outside help. I think everybody has agreed that this operation, unlike so many others in the past, will be driven by the local people.
Again, as in our early days in Iraq, some analysts are saying Libya can pay for its rebirth from its rich oil and gas resources. Realistically, how long will it take for them to fully come back online?
It depends on how quickly they get the political situation settled down, and so that they can pass a few laws and reassure the oil and gas companies that things have returned to something like normal. And that could take some time, but Libyan capability to pay doesn't depend on producing more oil and gas. It depends on their getting hold of some of the frozen assets in Europe and the United States. And that process has already begun.
Dr. Daniel Surwer is professorial lecturer and senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of International Studies, a scholar at the Middle East Institute, and a blogger at peacefair.net.
Quote from the news, "We have a duty to protect people, and that's always balanced with human rights online or offline." That was a senior London police officer, Gordon Scobie, as lawmakers and officials met to discuss ways to restrict social media from contributing to the inspiration and coordination of civil unrest following riots that crippled some British neighborhoods.
Next, after the scandal, the prospects for Strauss-Kahn and his prosecutor, for your ears only.